for the next few weeks, do just some, what I'm calling summer psalms. I did this last year. Last year I kind of almost randomly decided, well, I'm going to do around the 100s, and we did a bunch of them last summer. I'm going to do quite as many this year. So we kind of ended in 100. We're going to do the 110s. I'm just going to take us through over the next 5 weeks before I get a little bit of vacation time. A few different psalms, and they're a little more informal. I'm just going to walk us through almost some thoughts that I have after studying and walking through them. And I want to start with one. It's actually a very important psalm. You notice on the bulletin, I don't have the outline on the back of the bulletin as usual. I do have some space there if you want to keep some notes. We're going to call this one Melchiziwho. And if you were listening as I read through the psalm, it had one kind of goofy name in the middle. We're going to come to that goofy individual in a few moments. At least, I shouldn't say that about him. But his name is goofy. That's what I'm trying to say. And we're going to look at a psalm that's a little bit of a mysterious psalm, because it's written, we're told, by David, or it's maybe written for David. The New Testament seems to pick it up that it's actually written by David himself. And it's all about kings, and there's quite a lot of the psalms, if you go through these 150 psalms that we find smack dab in the middle of the Bible, a lot of them are about the kings. And as we listen to them, and as we hear them, and as we study them, we certainly can see why they would be written during a time in which there were kings. But a lot of them point us forward towards Jesus. This one's a little different. This one's quite a bit different, actually, because among all of them, there was kind of a way to understand that they were about the king who was on the throne now and the king who was to come. This one is not about David in any way. It is not in any way about the king who is on the throne now. It is about the king that they were looking forward to, who would come in the person of Jesus Christ, who has come and brought his kingdom to earth as a spiritual kingdom today. And last week, if you were with us, we talked about Jesus Christ returning to our planet, the day which is coming, which his eternal kingdom will last forever physically upon our planet. We look forward to that now. This is not an average king, because it's a special king. It is a king that they are looking forward to, who not only comes to rule, he comes to bring people to God. He's described in this psalm as being a priest king. What a priest is? A priest is somebody who brings somebody to God. Now, who's a priest? Well, the New Testament is it me? Sometimes some places tell you it's the guy who's up in front. That's not the biblical teaching. It's all of us. Because in the New Testament, we, under the authority of Jesus, have the ability to bring anybody to God, to be the go-between where we're bringing people to God. Why do we do this? Because Jesus came as the one who brings us to God. And in the Old Testament, they make a big deal. If you're king, you can't do both jobs. There was a special group of people called the priests. They ran the temple, they looked after things, and it was a big no-no for the king to take over the job of what the priest was to do. And there's twice in the Old Testament where the king said, well, you know what, I'm pretty important. I mean, God has selected me to be the king, and so they take over the role of being priests, and both times God gets really mad at him. The first one's a guy by the name of Saul. The guy was king before David. And he goes and he brings sacrifices to God when he wasn't supposed to. And God says, I'm going to take the kingdom away from you. Later on, there's another king who's a really godly man by the name of Uzziah. And he comes along and says, I'm a godly man. Why don't I take over the job of being priest? And God gets really mad at him. He actually comes down with leprosy, and he's forced out of the eye of the public for the rest of his life. God took it quite seriously. These were two different jobs. But there was one guy who was to come, who could be both the ruler and the religious leader at the same time. Psalm 110 was often read out around the time of a special holiday in the Jewish tradition called Rosh Hashanah. You may have seen, you can still find it on some calendars today. We look at calendars, Jewish holidays. It just means New Year's. It was Jewish New Year's. Jewish New Year's, they would get together, they would read this psalm, and they would remember some of the victories that David had had militarily. They would look forward to it. They would actually relive it. Sometimes they would even reenact it. Then they would read this psalm and remember there's one coming who will be even greater, even bigger. And clearly this Jesus who we look at today is one who is a different kind of king. One who brings us to God through the conquests that he makes. There's a story of an African kingdom. Kingdoms in a lot of parts of the world don't necessarily equate to being big palaces and things like that. This king lived in a grass hut. And he passed away and left the kingdom to a very young son. The son was way too young to take the throne. They had a minister who was in charge in between things. And it was his job to protect the throne until the young king was ready to become the king. So he had to think about, how do I protect the throne? And he actually looked at the throne that the king sat on. And he said, nobody should sit on this throne except the one who's the king. So he got a big rope and he attached it to the throne, which was kind of somewhat ornate, raised it up to the ceiling and hung it from there. Nobody could sit there. The young king was playing in the hut quietly, however. The rope broke, the throne plummeted to the floor and crushed the poor prince. Which is where we get the statement to this day that people who live in grass houses shouldn't stow thrones. It's a dumb joke. I was trying to come up with something funny for this. We can have victory like Jesus. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Play some language games today. Something funny, actually. You happen to catch it up there. That, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, scholars who study the Bible and translate the Bible were trying to come up with creative ways to do things. And you look at that first line up there. We see the word Lord up there twice. But they're not exactly the same. Do you happen to catch that? First one, it's in all caps. The second one's not. Why is that? That's actually kind of important, but they don't make a big deal of it, really. It is actually kind of important. You see, there's different names that we have for God. Some of them are very simple names. If you go into Hebrew, one of the names is it's Adonai. We even have a song every once in a while we pull out that we sing it that has Adonai in the title. It means Lord or Master. It's a very simple word. It's actually that second word. Second time we find the word Lord up there, the one's not in all caps. That's this simple word that means Master. The first word up there that's in all caps, however, is a different word. It's not a common word. It's a very special word. In the Hebrew, it's the word Yahweh, which basically means the one who is all things. The one who is everything. It was a special name that God taught to Moses way back in the Old Testament. Said, this is a special name about myself. If we were Jewish, and I had just said that sacred name out loud, everybody would have shuddered. Trust me, because it was something that they were taught. You don't actually even say that name out loud. It was holy and sacred. It would be there on the page. In fact, if you go into the Old Testament, they spell it with just the consonants. They take the vowels out so that people are reminded, don't actually say it out loud. because it's such a special word. And it's one that is just for the true God. Now, like I said before, Adonai, that's Lord, that can be applied to all sorts of people. The king, it can be applied to a boss, it can be applied to a lot, it can be applied to God. But this other word is just for the one true God. It was a holy reminder of how good he was. This verse, as a result, I point all that out because sometimes you say, the Lord says to my Lord, it's kind of sounds like the same person talking to each other. It's actually the Father speaking to Jesus. In fact, that's how Jesus takes in the New Testament. Jesus quotes this about himself. The book of Acts quotes it about Jesus. The book of Hebrews quotes it about Jesus. It's actually the most quoted verse from the Old Testament in the New Testament. And it's the example of the Christian life. We talk rightly about Jesus, the God who came to earth. But one of the things we need to always remember about Jesus is he comes to earth and he lays aside his majesty and his glory to rely completely on the power of the Father through the Holy Spirit. He lives the Christian life as one who is in complete dependence on God. In other words, he becomes an example to us. And because he does that, the Father works in absolutely incredible ways. Jesus comes in humility, and therefore he becomes victorious. You know, that's what we're called to be like. There's a story of a young boy named Doug Melland. Exactly. He was a Bible translator. Went down to Brazil, and he went to the Bunio tribe of Indians in Brazil. And he went there to the Bible. Problem is, he got there, he walked into this village, and immediately everybody started to call him, not by his name, but by kind of a nasty title. They called him White Man. I kind of get that. When we've been to Africa, we've been there now a few times, the one word you learn very quickly in the language there is what white person means. One day, because we heard it a lot. Everywhere you walk down well, he got that all the time. They were calling him White Man. And it was not a complimentary name because those who had come before were white, had exploited them, had burned some of their villages, robbed them of their lands. It was not a happy thing, but he starts to live among them and learn the language. And he starts to help people. He brings medicine, he finds all sorts of ways to get it. And eventually he said his name changed. They started to call him Respectable White Man. Respectable White Man. He began to adopt the customs of his people. Started to act like them, to learn their language, to respect them. And as he did that, they changed his name again. He said they started calling him the White Indian. So one day, there was a child who got badly hurt. Hurt his foot, got it all mangled up. And he took a lot of time washing the dirty, blood-caked foot. And he overheard somebody who was watching him do this say, "Whoever heard of a white man washing an Indian's foot before? Certainly this man is from God." And he wrote that once again his name changed into the man God sent. The man God sent. That's the idea here. Because that's Jesus. Comes to serve, to sacrifice, to give. And as a result, he's the man whom God has sent. And do you know what? The way this gets picked up in the New Testament, we are to be like him. To be, and to look at ourselves as the people whom God has sent. That God has sent us to this world. It's a victory like Jesus. We have victory with Jesus too. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will offer themselves freely on the day of your power. In holy garments from the womb of the morning, the dew of your youth will be yours. I get out of this a few things. Number one, that if you go back to the screen before, that the power of Jesus goes out before us. Rules even over those who declare themselves to be our enemies. We certainly have enemies in this world, and sometimes we just may chalk it up to people who may not like us, or something like that, or people speak poorly. Maybe people speak poorly of the church. You know, some enemies that are more spiritual nature. We have last enemy to be defeated according to the Bible is? It's described as death. That's an enemy we have. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Rule in the midst of your enemies. All people be forced one day to acknowledge Jesus as Lord. Get that out of this. But you go to that second screen I put up here. Within Jesus, we're made right, and we offer ourselves freely to Him. And what happens when we do that? Scribes, as holy garments, were changed. Within Jesus, we're made right from the womb of the morning. Almost an analogy that we get there towards John chapter 3, where we're told that we will be born again. We'll remain new life. And we'll be renewed and made strong within Jesus. The dew of your youth will be yours. Now, some here may not necessarily relate to this in the same way as others, but for some we're kind of, maybe youth is a little bit further in the rear view mirror, and I'll let you define it. That's you. I don't know. But the dew of the youth will be yours. You will have it. What is that? That strength and energy? It's a lot of stuff to emphasize what Jesus is doing. What Jesus is doing. Which leads us to the very interesting verse in the middle. Not just picture of Jesus. Victory comes from Jesus. The Lord has sworn and will not change His mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. It's from Genesis 14. This is a really critical character in the Bible who doesn't get a lot of airplay. He's found kind of in three passages. He's found Genesis 14. He's found here in Psalm 110. He's found the book of Hebrews. That's kind of it. But he becomes a very central figure in a lot of Christian understanding. In Genesis 14, Abraham, other Jewish people, is actually known as Abram at this time. He is living in what is today Israel, but then was kind of this broken confederacy. There's probably, I don't know, it's a little tiny country, maybe 10,000 people living there. And maybe 100 to 200 different kings. Basically, everybody had their own little king. It's kind of like if, you came to a town Viking size and there was kind of a king for the north end, a king for the south, west, east. It's kind of like that. Every clan had its own king. There was all these kings. Abraham gets attacked by a series of kings, and all the other kings around him, they all get attacked. And Lot, Abraham's nephew, gets captured, along with a whole lot of other people, a lot of plunder. They take him way up to the north part of the country. Abraham gathers together an army. They go chasing after Lot and these people who've stolen all these people and all this stuff. And they attack actually in the middle of the night. It's a surprise attack. And they go in and they rescue Lot. They rescue his family. They rescue all the people. They rescue all the stuff. Bring it back. He's going back to return the stuff that's been stolen from some of the kings who didn't bother to go attack him. He's a nice guy, I guess. And along the way, he runs into another king. This king's a little different. If you read through the book of Genesis, you'll find a whole bunch of people called Abimelech. And you might question if you're reading the book of Genesis, why are there so many people with the same name? It's actually not a name, it's a title. It means father king. It doesn't mean king of a big nation, it means king of a little tribe. Well, here's another one who's a king. He gets a title, but it's a very different kind of title. Melchizedek is not a name. It means righteous king. Righteous king. We are told that he is a priest of the one true God. Which is kind of funny because there weren't a lot of people worshiping the one true God. He's from a city called Salem. We think that's Jerusalem. Not positive. We think it's Jerusalem. Salem means peace. He's the priest king of peace. Interesting character. Abraham comes before this one who had nothing to do with the war on either side. And they get together and they have a remarkable meeting. The Bible doesn't give us a ton of information, but it gives us a little bit. And the church, and even here in Psalm 110, has always understood that Melchizedek is an example of Jesus. We don't know anything about him. We do know this. They meet. Melchizedek comes up and he brings him a snack. Now, what snack do you think he brings Abraham? It's really critical what he brings him. I don't think Abraham understood the importance of what the snack was. I'm not even sure Melchizedek understood the importance, but hopefully everybody here will understand the importance of what he brought him as a snack. He brought him two things: bread and wine. Bread and wine. What does that look like? Communion, right? Jesus on the Last Supper brings bread, he breaks it, takes wine, he puts in the cups. This bread is my body. This cup is the new covenant of my blood. It's about Jesus. He brings him Jesus. He brings him the hope, not just Jesus, but the actual sacrifice. He does this as he's reminding Abraham that all victory is found in God alone. Reminds him, all victory is found in God alone. Then he brings him to communion. Then Melchizedek gives a great blessing to Abraham. Now this becomes important. Abraham accepts the gift of the body, the blood. And because he does that, he's given a blessing. This is the gospel. All in one little story. Victory is only found in God. Accepts that, so he comes to the broken body, he comes to the spilled blood. And then, because he accepts that, he's given a blessing. And do you know what the response of Abraham is? Abraham's response is he gives him an offering of worship through giving a physical, monetary gift. He gives him 10% of everything, it says. We're not entirely sure if it's 10% of everything he owned or 10% of what he got. Now, the spoils of war is probably that. What I feel that I've worked hard for and earned, I give to God. It's actually quite a statement. He's just been victory only comes from God. He comes and he discovers that victory through Jesus. And now he gives of himself the thing that it seems like he earned. He gives it to the priest, this priest king, Melchizedek. Symbolic of the church. He turns over what most people would argue should be rightfully Abraham's, but he gives it to Jesus. Gives it to Jesus. There is quite a lot in that story. It should move us closer to this idea of the gospel. We need to understand, you want to live a victorious life, you want to live right. The only way it's possible is by giving ourselves over to God. We come to the cross, we come to Jesus, we accept that, you know what? It's a great blessing. And as God blesses us, we turn around and we give to Him as an act of worship, not because He needs anything, because it's a statement that, you know what? Everything that I have received is from you anyways. Regardless of what I'm giving. If I'm giving her my money, it's because I feel like I've earned it, and it's yours. If I give up my time, it's because, well, I've only got limited time, but you know what? God gave me that time. If I sing my worship, because God has given me the talent, or in some of our cases, the lack of talent, but we try anyways, but He's given us the ability to sing and to worship, all these things. We're giving back what He's given to us in statement, you know what? All victory is from you. I come to you because everything I have is from you, Jesus. Everything's from you. Victory stands before Jesus. Psalm ends, the Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of His wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. He will drink from the brook by the way. Therefore He will lift up His head. Oh, does that make you feel a little uncomfortable? It's supposed to. It's supposed to, because it's supposed to be getting our attention here. Hang on, what happens if we stand against the one who's going to win victory? See, we're not supposed to necessarily like every verse of the Bible. Some verses are supposed to make us feel a little uncomfortable. If all I ever read in the Bible is things I want to read, I'm not reading it right. Psalm 110 is about a very serious issue. There is a king, and we need to decide if we're on his side or not. There's an author by the name of Max Reich who wrote this. 110th Psalm gives us the key to history. The one who alone can right the wrongs of earth, hush its storms, break its chains, heal its wounds, straighten out its crookedness, dispel its darkness, is hid in heaven because there is no room for him on earth. Interesting. Sitting at the right hand of God, the exclusive privilege of the Son and heir, He is patiently biding His time to the hour when God will intervene on His behalf on earth, making His enemies His footstool. So the problem is, we got sin in all of our lives. Most Canadians will be very quick to dismiss that idea, right? We don't like to think of ourselves as sinful. We think of ourselves as generally good people. And God will make things right, so I better be on His side. The victory is being won, and I promise you, the King is coming to bring His full victory. He comes to bring you to God, to stand in the gap between the divine and human, to take us towards the Father. We need to be on His side. We need to be on His side. So this morning I challenge us to the end. Understand what it means to be like Abraham who went basically to Jesus. It's challenged. If you want victory, it's going to be found in me. He brings him to broken bread. Brings him to the cup. And when he accepts it, he's blessed. And he worships God. Understand that is our place. We're going to sing a hymn. It's not the most, we pick it every once in a while, but it's not the most familiar, but you'll recognize the tune right away. Glory be to God. If you want to follow